So every day of my life, when I wake up, I never know what's gonna happen because I truly live the random life. Sometimes I get a phone call, "Hey Eric, would you take a look at this cursed Egyptian artifact?" I never know what's gonna happen. And today was no different. Today, a friend called me and said he needed my help. He needed help with a broken toilet. Of course, I'm right there. I decided to go to my friend's house and help him with his little plumbing problem. It's always something new. It's the mad life. In life, there are three things we gotta do. We gotta eat, sleep, and have a working restroom. Having a working toilet is one of those necessities in life you definitely need to have. And so what I'm gonna show you is how to change a toilet ring, change a fill valve in the toilet. Let's go. Here we have the parts that we're gonna need. A wax ring set like we have here, and the supply hose. And here is a toilet fill valve set. You could always go on the internet and just print the instructions out on how to do it yourself. On the internet, PC load letter? What the f does that mean? Piece of First, and one of the most important steps is to turn off the water for obvious reasons. Make sure to support the pipe that goes in the wall and don't twist it like crazy, because if you snap this pipe in the wall, you are screwed. I use rubbing alcohol and I wipe down the entire toilet surface before I lay a hand on it. That's just what I do. Now, carefully take the toilet tank lid off and place it somewhere where it'll be safe and put it down carefully. Here's a fun toilet fact. In the toilet tank, there's usually a date of manufacture. If your toilet is like 10 years old or older, you may want to consider a whole new toilet. Having a look inside the tank, we see there's no evidence of an upper decker, so it looks like we're good to go. So flush the toilet, and this will empty some of the water in the tank and some of the water in the bowl. Don't do this if you have a leak issue, like water coming out of the bottom of the toilet or something like that. We need to get the extra water out of the tank and out of the bowl. This plastic cup reminds me how great a margarita would be about now. If you find that you can't use your cup to bail out the water, then throw in a towel and sop that stuff up. The least amount of water in this toilet, the easier it is for us and less mess. Alright, now let's take the feed line off. It's possible a strong hand could go ahead and take this off, but you may need a tool to loosen it. Some water may and probably will come out, so be prepared by a towel or have a cup or something to catch it, so that way we don't make a big mess here. Alright, and now we could go ahead and take the entire feed line off because we're gonna replace it. Alright, now we're gonna take the nut off that actually holds the fill valve in place. Now this should be able to come off with your hand, but if not, use a tool, whatever, to take it off without getting crazy. Alright, now when we pull the fill valve out, what water is left in that tank is going to flow out, so have a cup ready or a towel or something like that. All right, once you take the feed hose off right here and take out the old fill valve, but I would suggest to hang on to it for later. We're gonna need it. All right, let's get this toilet off the ground. Pull these caps off, if any, and take off the nuts that hold the toilet down. Righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. I'm sure that you already know that. All right, now there's nuts on both sides of the toilet, so make sure to take them all off before attempting the removal of the toilet. Here's a problem right here. You see the whole bolt came out, which means that it probably wasn't properly attached. Okay, lid off and bolts out. All right, now watch where I grab the toilet. Make sure you can lift some weight or this could get ugly pretty quick. Slightly rock the toilet back and forth side to side to make sure that you break the caulking if there's any on the bottom. All right, now when you know it's free, lift off carefully and place in a safe location, like on some towels or something. All right, this is a toilet flange. Clean it off, check for cracks, see if it's broken, anything like that. We need a perfect flange before we replace the toilet. All right, see all this goo? This is actually wax. It's not really what you probably think it is. So we can take some paper towels or some towels or something and wipe it up, get it all wiped up and get it clean, throw it away so we can look at something clean. You probably don't have to remove all the old wax, but I do. That way you can start completely fresh. All right, let's open the wax ring set. You get the wax ring with the little funnel piece on there and the bolts. All right, pull out the center ring hole plug and then we're ready to go. All right, now the wax ring should stick like you see here with a little force when you place it onto the bottom of the toilet. Here are the bolts that came with the wax ring, so let's get those open and we're going to be using those so we can start with new everything. Let's get our bolts ready and place them on the flange like this. Use the clear washers to hold the bolts in place so that way we can position them the way we want it. Line up the bolts on the left and the right side the way they were before, like this. Before we stick the new toilet on, let's put the new fill line in since we have a lot of room. I always hear people say that you don't have to change the feed hose, but I would argue that the rubber washers inside, once the connection's made and they've been compressed and in use for a few weeks, may not seal correctly when you take it off and try to put it on again. And for a few bucks, why not just go ahead and change it? You should feel when you lower the toilet into position the wax underneath squishing against the flange. This is an extra wax ring without that little funnel piece on it that you could put on there if you didn't feel the squish. That squish is the wax creating the seal underneath the toilet with the flange. Check that the gap behind the tank is completely even, so at this point we can kind of tilt the toilet back and forth and make sure we have it in the right position. Check that the bolts are lined up, that they feel very sturdy in their position. Now place the steel washers on the bolts like this, and now we can put the nuts onto the bolts and hand tighten them. And now we can tighten them, but just a few turns evenly on both sides. Do not over tighten these nuts or you may crack the toilet or the flange underneath it. Check to make sure that the toilet is stable and pour a bucket of water into the bowl to check for leaks at the base. If the toilet passes all the checks, now we can get to that new fill valve. So let's unbox the fill valve and see what it's all about. Alright, we got the fill valve itself and some instructions. If you missed or didn't get any of the things I'm saying, these instructions are painfully easy to follow. But of course, this video is better than any instructions you would ever get, so, you know. As a rule of thumb, you could use the old fill valve in this case to determine the length of the new filler valve when you make the adjustments. These fill valves are adjustable as to their height, and they have these numbers on the stem right here to help you get the exact adjustment you want. You can adjust the fill valve by turning it like this. Alright, place the fill valve in like this and make sure that the washer seats at the bottom of the tank, so push down firmly on it to seat it properly. Place the nut lightly on the filler valve like this. Position the fill valve with the water supply toward the Douglas valve. Here is where we're going to put that little rubber supply hose. Alright, with everything lined up, now we can tighten the fill valve nut fully. Fully hand tight. Now, I pour some water in the tank to allow us to check for leaks. Check the fill valve nut area for water and tighten if needed. Now we can attach the supply line and hand tighten. Check inside the tank to make sure the fill valve hasn't moved out of position. Although no one ever does, I tear the paper off because it looks so much better without it hanging on there. Alright, now the rubber supply hose, it goes right here. Make sure to push it all the way on. If you want to, you can look at the hose on the old fill valve. That way you can get an idea how long that you're going to cut your new one to. Or just size it yourself. It should not be long running down that white thing called a Douglas valve. Yeah, a Douglas valve. So cut it here with some going into the valve, but just like an inch or so. Knife, scissors, whatever, just don't kill yourself cutting the hose. Alright, now place the rubber supply hose into this little holder hole right here. Alright, now we can turn the water on, and while the tank fills, check all of your connections for any signs of leaks. All dry, all good. Everything looks good in the tank. There isn't anything leaking or running. Now, put the lid back on the tank carefully. It would appear as if you're all done. Not so fast, not so fast. We're not quite done yet. Alright, see here? Now these caps won't fit anymore. We are going to have to cut these bolts down a little bit short, but notice there's a little part that you could cut off right there. Alright, so grab a hacksaw and let's get cutting. And look at that, snaps right off. And then we put those caps on, and now look, we did the job the right way. And look, we're done. Okay, you've leveled up, so now go impress your friends. So what's the big lesson you learned here today, boys and girls? Don't volunteer for anything. So obviously I'm living the mad life, fixing some guy's toilet. Whoa, whoa.